It all began with aches and pains, a sour throat, diarrhea, headache, loss of taste and smell, and then followed by a loss of breath and deaths. COVID-19 had hit the world and everyone was running for their dear lives. And then on one bright Thursday afternoon on 12th of March 2020, Kenya reported her first case of COVID-19. Shock, panic, lockdowns and more lockdowns followed. The economy slumped and Kenyans were left battling for their dear lives. Nevertheless, reggae hasn't stopped. Slowly but surely, the sun is rising again. Welcome to 2020 Year in Review. We'll look at how the year has panned out and what to expect this coming year. My name is Frederick Mwiteriri.
My name is Lincoln Wambogo. On March 13th, the situation hit home. Not any different from the other parts of the globe, but rather worse and unfortunate. At least 6 people died from police violence during the first 10 days of Kenya's dusk to dawn curfew. When this was stopped, then COVID-19 related deaths began. Deaths that have not spared the frontline soldiers in the fight against this disease. This we call the last chapter of 2020.
Absolutely. So what stood out for most of you this year and what do you expect this coming year 2021? Talk to us on 111 Tweet us at Switch TV Kenya, at Lincoln Wambogo, at Fred Mwiteriri. The last chapter of 2020 is our hashtag. Welcome to 2020 here in review. In studio, we have guests for you. We have them on Zoom. We are talking about Gladys Boschele, Wasan Gishu Women Representative. She's in the house. Of course, we have nominated Senator Sylvia Kasanga. And Link, whom do we have in the studio?
And in the still on Zoom, we have Nurdin Kagai, a lawyer and governance expert.
Yes.
And on my right, we have Gloria Oroba, a youth policy analyst, and Kevin Osindo, a governance expert. Many thanks for joining us.
Asanteni sana. And so we start with you in the studio. Kevin, how was your 2020? If you can tell us in just 1 minute, how was your 2020?
My 2020 was quite interesting, in one word. Starting from a very high-ended year, very high levels of expectations.
Yes.
Extreme interest in governance of our country, particularly given the first processes of amending the constitution. From a governance perspective and institutional level is to, of course, expected to have had the desire to want to engage with county governments to see how they are meeting the expectations of the people. Unfortunately, March 14th, it all stopped.
Sorry for you. How has it been for you, 2020?
It's been challenging, but I will tell you this: it's been actually a positive year for some of the youth, because it's the year where they actually got out of the comfort zone and went into the innovative spaces to create solutions, you know, against the pandemic effects. So it's the year that we saw the Kenyatta University students actually come up with the ventilators. It's the year that we've seen a lot of youth, even from the low-income areas, build these portable sinks and all these sanitizers and things like that.
Absolutely.
So it's been interesting. Yeah.
All right. Madam Gladys Boschele, karibu sana. It's been a moment. And nice seeing you. Tell us, how has it been for you, 2020? All right. I'm being told we can go to a nominated senator. Senator, how has it been for you? 2020 has been that year. How has it been for you?
Thank you, Fred, and thank you again for having me. I have had what I can call a dynamic year. That's what I can call it. Very high highs and very low lows. A lot of learning to our the loss is painful. I love because of it. It will never be the same COVID. The high being the fact that I reached probably the apex I could probably reach as a nominated senator, which is chairing a committee of Parliament, the ad hoc committee on COVID, which I served together with my members very diligently. And from there, you know, we had highs as a committee and we had lows as a committee as well. We had some achievements. We had a lot of disappointments. and our committee had to wind up before we could probably finish our mandate completely because of lack of funding.
Your line is breaking. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
I can hear you,
okay. There's something that broke before I came to you. What were you saying?
I was saying that on level, it has been a lot of learning and a lot of interactions with my professional colleagues, because now when Parliament came to a standstill, then we had to look for, of course, many other ways of interactions through internet. We had a lot of meetings and interactions with colleagues via online. Yes.
All right. We can go to Kagai. Kagai, are you here with us? Absolutely.
Yes,
So Kagai, 2020, you've seen it all the way from March of this year. How has it been for you?
Yes. I believe 2020 has been eye-opening. We have finally found or understood where we lie as citizens in the hearts of our leaders. And I say this because a leader is tested best during a crisis, how you manage a crisis. We as citizens have seen how they manage the corona pandemic. We have seen whether the corona is of more importance or other things that they are propagating or propelling. And as citizens, the youth are awake, if I may say that. Because the youth of today are not the same as yesterday, because they have been pushed to wake up and realize that things are not the same. And for a better Kenya to go forward, they need to take part in the decision-making process of this country. We need to offer alternative leadership to what we have seen, because in the midst of a pandemic where we have lost so many lives, we have so many issues that are being put under the table other than being addressed. And we are busy singing a reggae song that will take us really nowhere at the moment.
All right.
Thank you, Nurdin. I mean, what stands out for me is that every dark cloud has its silver lining.
Absolutely.
And now the axe fell on Sonko, the second governor, I think the second populist governor to be axed out of his seat. Can Sonko redeem himself in Nairobi politics? Ever?
Can he? We start with you. We start with ladies in the house. We start with you.
You know, it's very unfortunate, actually. I was one of the people who were... Yesterday was a sad day for us, yeah? For us, I mean for those who believe in devolution, for those who actually believe in the sovereignty of the people, and for those of us who actually think that our votes count. So we queue and we go to the ballot and we elect the leaders that we want, because we have that power.
Yep.
So yesterday was a sad day because it is clear that it wasn't really about the issues. It wasn't really about the 4 points that they were saying they were impeaching him on, whether it was abuse of office or gross misconduct or crimes under the national law, or even the violation of the Constitution. Because while we saw how the proceedings at the Senate, they didn't have any tangible evidence. They didn't really, actually it was a lot of narratives and storytelling. And I was quite pleasantly surprised on how Sonko, you know, held forth and how he was actually able to substantiate all the different cases that were being put forward. We had him talking about the reason he actually withheld the checks for the bursary was because he unearthed a cartel of MCAs and their families that they were actually siphoning those funds into personal use. So I was pleasantly surprised, because even for me, I did not anticipate that Governor Sonko was able to articulate the issues the way he did at the Senate. But all in all, we know the numbers were not there.
I know you're going to come in on this, and I know you have a different opinion. Kevin.
Yes, please.
She's saying that the 4 issues that were brought at the Senate, at the plenary, they were not well substantiated. Are you of the same opinion?
I am of a completely different opinion, and I think that Mheshimiwa Sonko made it very easy for not just the senators, but even viewers and people whose interest is devolution, particularly the citizens of Nairobi, who expected very highly from their governor. Remember that this is a gentleman who has been an MP in this same city. This is a gentleman who has been a senator. This is a gentleman who actually rose to be governor out of his populist leadership styles. And people were excited about how he was, presenting his leadership services, delivering them. And ultimately they said, wow, voila, we finally found the people's governor.
Yeah.
So this is a governor who does not want to abide by, in my view, two things. One is you have the legislative or the legal framework within which you are expected to operate through. Number two, you have policies that are basically meant to guide how you also engage with your leaders. And from whether we talk about lack of proper evidence or whatsoever, we had witnesses. Each side had witnesses, and unfortunately, due to time lapses, we were unable to have all the witnesses present their cases. But the few who spoke, you could tell, particularly from one of the former officers, how difficult it was even to be able to sit in meetings with this governor. As a governor, the Constitution of Kenya refers to you as a chief executive officer. And so if you
CEO of Nairobi,
CEO of Nairobi, imagine if Safaricom CEO executed his responsibilities in the manner in which we have seen the governor of Nairobi execute his responsibilities. At the very least level is services for the people of Nairobi. These are people who, whether Gloria says we voted for them, nobody spends time to train, teach, and civic educate these people on how to vote. And that is why our leaders take advantage. And I don't think it would do me...
So, Kevin, are you saying the people of Nairobi were not themselves when they were voting for Sonko? Are you saying that?
The people of Nairobi were not themselves, because the people who voted for Mheshimiwa Sonko were the people who felt the touch of Sonko through Sonko Rescue Team.
But that is a false statement.
But that is what Sonko made us say.
Because that is actually, I'm sorry to say this, but that is elitism, because you assume that the people of Nairobi are like you, all of them are like you, that they drive to the studio, that they have prestigious homes, that they're able to speak English and articulate their issues, that have masters and PhDs. When you look at our population, 75% of 50 million Kenyans are actually the youth,
unfortunately,
and half
Gloria,
of them are actually products produced from TVET.
The people who are putting Mheshimiwa Sonko to the guillotine were not the people who voted for him. It is not the common mamambogas who actually woke up very early in the morning.
So Kevin, what you're telling us is that when elections will be called, some 50 days from today, when the elections will be called, you're telling me Governor Sonko, if he is in the ballot, he's not going to be elected. Is that what you're saying?
If Governor Sonko is in the ballot, he will be elected, because no one is telling us what is gross violation of office of governor. What is it? It is some very elistic senators who sit and decide to ask for evidence. If you went and asked the people that Mheshimiwa Sonko were parading as having benefited from, those bursaries and whatsoever, they would vote for him, because these are people who have tried many times to apply. Sonko had a team of people called Sonko Rescue Team, and I personally interacted with some of them who would be present where things are happening. So a house is going down, you'd see lorries there. Some of them were even not budgeted.
So they were helping people.
And they were helping people. So if you gave them an opportunity today
to ask you a
vote for Sonko, they would vote for him.
But isn't government, right, as an institution, isn't it supposed to provide those same services that Sonko Rescue Team or Sonko's people or Sonko's goons were actually providing for the people? Because I'm listening to you talking, and I feel as though Sonko has actually managed to step in for government personally as an individual, and he was trying to transfer those skills into the county of Nairobi.
Which is why,
so at the end of the day, he actually delivered services. When I hear you talking about when buildings are going down, that Sonko made sure that they would not go down unless it was the proper thing to do. That is what government should be doing.
Which is why I'm saying, when I began my presentation, I said you are operating within a context of laws, policies, and teamwork.
Thank you very much.
Sonko Rescue Team was an illegal entity.
Let's engage somebody who was involved in the voting of Governor Sonko at the Senate. Senator Sylvia, what happened? I heard not once or twice or thrice saying that the process of ousting a governor from the perspective of the senators, it is flawed and it should be changed. We should have a better law to oust a governor. What happened at the Senate? If the process is flawed, why was he ousted? Why did your Senate oust him?
I think the senators, when they commented on the process, it was largely because, one, the law provides for very short timelines. So you find a situation from the time the Speaker of the Senate receives a letter from the county assembly, the parties have very little time, 14 days, to prepare a case. And let's agree, to hear a matter to do with a ouster of a governor of a county is a very serious issue. And 14 days is not enough. And then 2 days for the Senate to hear the matter and determine it is a very short time. I tell you, Fred, I'm an arbitrator, and I listen to matters that have quantums of, say, 10 million or 15 million, and it takes even sometimes 6 months by the time you have combed through all the evidence and be able to come out with a substantial award. But largely, we have to agree that these processes are also very, very political. In fact, they are more political than judicial. And that is why you had the Speaker during the open sessions would repeatedly say that this is a quasi-judicial sitting. And it's because the quasi part of it is the political part of it. The oustering of a governor is a very political affair. In fact, by the time the county assembly has passed a motion, you imagine, and you even saw in this Nairobi County and even all the other counties where oustering has happened, you've seen a lot of politics is at play. A lot of politics is at play. So, that's what we can say. It's a political issue. And that's why, Fred, I think when you asked me earlier on, I said it is what it is. It is not about facts and figures or the law. It's about politics. So how did Governor Sonko play his politics? How did he find himself in this space where he has lacked favor with the powers that be? That's a fact, and that's what we have to agree on. But largely, there's a lot of reflection here that has to happen. And I keep saying this. When a governor is brought to the dock, we have to question ourselves as citizens. How do we find ourselves here? This is a very senior official who has been elected by very many people to go into power, to be the CEO, like somebody has said, and govern a county, govern the billions that this county has. Nairobi has a lot of billions in the hands of our CEO. So how is it that we find ourselves in this space? When I listened to the proceedings, and I listened very keenly, I was attending virtually from where I'm seated right now, and I have all the files here with me, I have all the evidence here with me. But when you listen to the submissions from both sides, I mean, there's a lot that comes into our mind. Why is it that we are in a country where we are encouraging what I call mediocrity, no rule of law, no and processes, lack of standards, and these leaders are there by people. Forget about whether they civic education or anything. Kenyans are celebrating mediocrity, and I'll repeat that. Celebrating by-election happening. And you heard the utterances of some of our leaders there, and Kenyans were cheering to vulgarity. These leaders are there for a reason, and it is time we reflect, because whether we want to admit it or not, whether we voted for Sonko or those of us who are favorites of Sonko or otherwise, something was amiss in Nairobi. Kenyans were not received that they deserve. Money was lost. Corruption was at its highest. Even the self.
Hold still, Sylvia.
Thank you.
Talk about how
Now, Nurdin, a question for you. Allegations against Governor Sonko were similar to that of Governor Waiguru. Now, the question is, are Kenyans getting value for their votes, not just in the governorship, but the senators as well? Should politics come to play in the House on such serious matters?
Politics should never come to play. The reason why I say this,
Are you still with us, Nurdin? I can't hear you. Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
I'm saying the problem we have.
Your line is breaking, brother. Your line is breaking. Let me ask Kevin. Your line is breaking. I will come back to you, Mr. Nurdin. Let me ask you the same question. If it is a political process, as we saw, it was a political process, not so much about the process that we should follow, ousting a governor. Like he asked, are we wasting the votes of the people who vote for these politicians? Are we telling them that the votes do not matter?
What we are telling the people is that voting is a process. There is also a procedure. We have spent too much time on the procedure, which is basically looking at qualifications of running for office, roles of these individuals that we elect into these particular offices. But when it gets to the process of getting the leader that we want, we haven't taken time to be able to get into the details of how we
getting
ensure.
a good leader.
Exactly. Who is this good leader? One, there
You
is
want rogue politicians
one there is
who
a
are-
leader, and then
who are-
the other.
they are playing with our emotions.
Precisely. And that is why if you look at the difference between Kirinyaga and Nairobi, they are incomparable. In fact, you cannot compare them because Mheshimiwa Waiguru
Now
has
that I
been...
disagree with you. How? These were the same cases.
No, wait.
Exactly. The
I'm
Constitution.
talking about the
Same lawyers who
people, the
represented
process and the
Waiguru.
procedure. Yeah? And remember that initially I said Mheshimiwa Sonko made it easy for people to get evidence against him.
No,
There were
absolutely
videos that were being played, which he personally uploaded, you know. When you go to Mheshimiwa Kirinyaga, Anne Waiguru, there was absolutely nothing from her in terms of what you can either download to be able to make
Kevin,
as a presentation.
Kevin, but you know, in a
Number
court of law,
two,
those videos cannot stand a chance. You know that because
unfortunately,
you have to look at the context of a
unfortunately,
video.
as the senator says,
Yeah.
this was a quasi-judicial process.
Yeah.
And the senators kept saying, this is not a court of law, let's not go into the details. And if you look at how they voted, 27-16, 27-16,
On all
27
four.
on all four, it therefore means that politics overtook the process and the procedure. And as I said earlier on, the senators, most of them who are voting, including the gentleman who should have cast his vote as a senator for Nairobi, abstained, which means that the people of Nairobi were not given that opportunity to
have their
interact.
say.
Exactly, to interact with the process and the procedure of getting that good leader and the leader that we want.
Let me ask you this question. Gloria, in 40-something days from today, if Governor Sonko will be in the ballot, will he be elected the governor of Nairobi?
I believe so. And I like that you say if Governor Sonko will be in the ballot, because what I truly believe is that the drivers of this impeachment, they never really thought through the end-to-end process. Remember, at the beginning of the Building Bridges initiative, they were really trying to ensure that the county of Nairobi will no longer be a county. So according to the mathematics that was played then, is that we would have already been within a referendum that by the time that Sonko is being impeached, there would be no need to go into a by-election. That is what I truly believe. Meaning that they had played their cards in that we are going to stumble upon devolution. We are going to ensure that, first of all, we have to take Sonko out of the equation. Because, of course, we know Sonko does not represent any dynasties. He does not represent, old money. He does not represent...
He has money.
Really? No.
He
I
has
said,
money.
he does not represent...
This guy is a billionaire.
Listen, he does not represent old money. He was not raised in a family of people who were born in State House. He was not raised in a family of freedom fighters. Sonko literally is nobody, was nobody. He came from nowhere, and that is what people are afraid of. People are afraid of things that they don't understand. When you don't understand, this is not a Raila Odinga, this is not a Kenyatta, this is not a Nyachai, this is not somebody that you can a Mudavadi or they don't know who this person is. And at the end of the day, he actually, like you said earlier, he had a career development. He came in from, down there, and he was running around trying to help he's worked. He's a clear example of how we reward hard work, because he actually worked hard within the political arena, and he got it to where he is. And the problem of that is that he has a sort of independent mind. When you say we can't compare him with Anne Waiguru, for sure I agree with you, because Anne Waiguru, we know where she came from. Yeah. I mean, she was a civil servant. She was an intern when our president was in the Ministry of Finance, yeah. And then she rocketed up, and she's been in the ropes, and she's with the dynasties. Yeah. And so the handshake actually saved her. But this time round, we understood that Sonko, first of all, the battles that he was picking with these dynasties, he literally swallowed too much. He picked up too many battles, some of which he didn't really understand, the extensions to which they're going to, affect him. Yep. And so what you see is not people fighting Sonko as a personality, but you see the dynasty is trying to ensure that nobody is coming into this inner circle.
Thank you,
That's
thank you,
what they're
Gloria.
fighting.
Thank you, Gloria.
Yeah.
The conversation continues after this commercial break. Stay tuned.
And welcome back, 2020 in review. We've had so much in store, and we have so much in store. We're speaking about different topics that this year we've seen it all. Now, what stood out for most of you this year? What stood out for you this year? And what do you expect for this coming year? Talk to us on 111 444 111. You can tweet us at Switch TV Kenya, at Lincoln Wambugu, at Fred Mwitereri. Hashtag the last chapter of 2020. And we start off with Msambweni. What happened to Jubilee Party in Msambweni? What happened?
Fred, I think we can start from the beginning.
Yes.
Ruto has his guy.
Yeah.
He flaunts his guy. Tuju tells him that you cannot use the party headquarters to strategize and everything. What really happened from the beginning?
Dan, our director, Lynette, do you have that bite of Tujo and Ruto? All right. I'm being told we can continue the conversation. They're looking for it. What happened between Tujo and Ruto?
Mheshimiwa Ruto is being a bad boy in the house.
Kevin.
He's just being a bad boy in the family. This gentleman who is seemingly so powerful. Because remember...
He's powerful. Deputy party leader. Deputy...
just leave that. Because if you look at the elected leaders for 2017 in Jubilee, they are more or less like pointers, people that Mheshimiwa Ruto is the one who actually put into office. Because remember that he was also the chief campaigner. He was more or less like the chief strategist. This gentleman he stood out as the power behind all the action around Jubilee in 2017. And both from his tone, his activations, he was here today. In 2 hours, he is there and is making things happen. And so when he suddenly realizes that this house, that my family members are beginning to close on me, and yet I also want to be like, you know, the footstool, the spokesman of the family. You want to exert that energy. And that is what Mheshimiwa Ruto is doing and continues to do. But that is also making people very uncomfortable within Jubilee, because there is no one within that party, the leadership that can be able to stand a campaign, right from planning, you know, even as we speak right now. The guy he goes to Narok and he says, mimi nimekuwa hapa na huyu Ntutu ndio naona kama anaweza kuwa governor 20. So he's already beginning the process. That is exactly what the gentleman was able to do in Msambweni, that even when his party, the candidate that he had, you know, was closed out from a Jubilee perspective, he looked for the low-lying fruits. And this independent candidate who was also a member of an ODM member, and then because of undemocratic practices within ODM, maybe, I'm not a member, don't speak for them, he moved into being an independent candidate. But and then number two decided to pick it up and run with it.
Let me just put into perspective what my colleague has actually said. Ruto was the brainchild of this Jubilee party. Remember that he passionately put together 11 political parties and folded his own party, URP. And because he was so passionate about creating a non-tribal sort of political party that had an ideology of fixing this country, he also went ahead to make sure that those shenanigans of people coming out of parties, or, you know, other smaller parties deciding we are no longer interested in this coalition, we're going to come out. He even put in a 10-year stay guarantee for all the political parties that were folded to make Jubilee. So for me, when I analyze his actions right now, this is a person who was very passionate about that project. Like you said, he was the project manager. He was the architect of Jubilee. And now, once the party has been stable enough, the party is actually was doing quite well, if you ask me. They had the majority numbers in all the houses, you know, and he starts realizing that there are some people within that party who do not have the same interests that Jubilee was actually founded on. So he feels bullied. And I believe once you understand your weight, because his weight, like you said, he is the person that was mobilizing on the ground. Remember, even when the elections were
Chief Operation Officer.
Even when Maraga said those elections that you guys did are null and void, they had to go back to the grounds. And remember, that was around the same time that our president, Uhuru Kenyatta, as the party leader, had actually he was from abusing the party members.
All right.
So William Ruto had to step in and go back and mobilize the same people who kind of were feeling, disenfranchised and not being respected. He still was able to mobilize them to ensure that they won the second election.
In essence, you're telling us that, Gloria, that Ruto is the engine behind Jubilee.
It has never been a secret. We all know that because Murathe cannot mobilize people. If
Let's go to
Ruto used
Senator.
to be the engine.
Hold still. Used to be. Senator Sylvia Kasanga, from where you stand, I know you belong to another party, but from where you stand, is Jubilee dead?
Fred, I hate getting into the politics of the Jubilee Party. I'm from Wiper, and we always say, though, that the problems in Jubilee are costing the whole nation. They're costing the whole nation. I mean, these battles between the president and the DP and their troops are costing the nation. They have made these last few years of their term so difficult. And in the process, Kenyans are the ones who are suffering. To the point where you can see the president having to call in the military men to get some services done and for him to finish his legacy. And that is truly, truly unfortunate, right? I don't want to go into too much of that, but there's something I want to comment. The conversation that was happening with the two panelists there in studio, when the young lady, and I like it when I hear young lady, upcoming leaders coming up, and we're really looking towards the young people, the younger generation now to begin to take the reins of power. But when I hear that they are taking this whole conversation of dynasty and those who have made it and hustlers, and we forget to look at what nature of hustling that some of these leaders have reached, where they have reached, and why we are celebrating this hustler nation. And we need to be careful because we are risking right now. We are celebrating the hustler nation because we are fighting.
Well,
Have we lost you?
You've lost me again?
No, you're here. You're here with us.
You can hear me,
Yeah, I can hear you. Oh.
And this for me, let me tell you, Fred, I find this conversation very heartbreaking because we are running around now in what I call circles. When the young people are saying, the leadership, and you had Nurdin, I think, at the beginning, and he's feeling a lot of pain because he feels the leadership has failed him. We are forgetting that some of these hustlers who we are celebrating right now, how have they reached there? If we are going to seriously look at the history of how they have made their money, can we say they're the right people who want to take us to the next 100 years? Really? And it pains me because I can see the young people being sucked into this narrative. And it is very unfortunate. They're being sucked into this narrative by a few people who have reached there one way or another. And the young people are failing to look at the bigger picture. I keep saying, and when I speak to the youth groups who I'm currently speaking to a lot, I would rather even the youth today came up by themselves. These young people below the age of 35, or say 40 and below, if they came together themselves, they can actually put a president in place. This is the power they're forgetting they have. They don't need to follow a dynasty. They don't need to follow a hustler. They just need to be themselves and to organize themselves. They don't need to be organized. And they are the ones we are relying on to break this very painful culture that has grown in this country, that is so deeply inbred in our veins that I'm not sure even how we're going to get out of it. I don't know how we're going to get out of it.
Let me hold still so that we give her the chance to rebut that.
Yes.
You're being told that young people are supposed to chart their own way, but it seems that we are being swallowed by what the politicians, the top layer politicians are telling us. Is that the case, Gloria?
First of all, why is that an assumption that when I sit here and air my views, my thoughts, my beliefs, the first assumption anyone makes is, by the way, you sound like you are being pulled into this narrative. Why is there an assumption that I do not have a brain of my own? And by the way, I will tell you something. You can go back to so many clips until last year. I think even before, like early last year. I want to believe, and I will say this authoritatively, that this hustler nation narrative was actually borrowed from young people. You understand? The young people are not following cue from either the deputy president or Sonko or
They had it.
In fact, the older people, including William Samoei Ruto, and I will say this, they are following cue from the young people. It is us, young people, who actually went out through our different forums. I was the country coordinator of Global Youth Parliament with headquarters in Nepal. And when we started the idea that young people who are actually bottom of the food chain in terms of economic empowerment, when we started pushing for empowerment through financial access to capital and things like that, we were already using these terminologies. We were already using the hustler movement. We were already using things like the commoners and the bottom of the chain, whatever. In fact, if you ask me, this narrative was borrowed from us. Can we please have that credit? So what I'm glad and I'm happy to hear, especially on national TV here, is that finally, this country has understood that we are a force.
But in the wrong way.
To the extent that we are now influencing political narrative, to the extent that politicians of the level of the deputy president had to stop with whatever movement that they had and think to themselves, I like this idea of the hustler, and I want to understand that ideology, and I'm going to borrow it. So we are not being influenced. We are very independent
Before you
thinkers.
speak, can we engage Kagai for a minute? He's still a youth. He can tell us.
Yes, and I believe that Nurdin and Gloria are capable enough of championing that.
And instigating ideology.
Yes.
Yes.
Now let's look at the handshake. That we can look at the Jubilee emblem. That was the first handshake that Uhuru Kenyatta had. And there was peace for some time, and then there was chaos for some time. Then we had a second handshake. Then there was peace for some time, and then chaos for some time. Now, these handshakes, are they just for a period of time? Then we have chaos, Nurdin. Then we have another handshake again, then chaos for some time. Are they so perennial? Do we have perennial handshakes in this country?
Nurdin, are you here with us?
Yes, I am with you now.
All right.
Hello. Yes. So I'm saying the handshakes, first and foremost, they are made of deceit and conmanship. I'll say that. Because at the end of the day, they don't stand to solve the issues that are pressing to the common man. Because for you to realize that, one, the youth need a commission, or the youth need a space so that they can pay the help loan, or they need a tax grace period, for you to have to handshake someone for that to happen, that shows you that there is a problem. And we're suffering from something I usually say, there's lack of proper leadership in Kenya. Because you cannot be united 2, 3, 4 people against a single person or against the rest of the country. Because what I keep saying is the handshake as it is serves no purpose. The only purpose they say it serves is peace. But I couldn't call what we have peace, but rather a sense of calm, in that we don't have the Mandaman or Mondays or Tuesdays that we used to have. Now, the problem we have in Kenya, our leaders are not honest, and they don't solve the issues that are facing us as Kenyans. Why do I say this? Because simply for you to actually believe that two people, when they stand together, everything is okay, is a fallacy and a lie. And Msambweni proves that.
This internet.
But let me ask.
I believe the population is awake, and now they know what they need. In seeing what we saw, that is why when we vote in these leaders, when they get to those offices, they are panel beat to a position.
Losing you, but I heard that their panel beaten.
Now, still on the handshake.
Yes.
The first handshake lasted about 6 years. And, Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta had a very cordial relationship. There was some time they used to wear same tie and same shirts to events. And Raila was not happy. Then now we have a second handshake. Ruto is not happy about the second handshake. Though Uhuru claims that Ruto was part of the handshake and he knew everything from the beginning. Do you think this second handshake will last until 2022?
This second handshake.
Because,
and I mean,
let me just get into that.
yes,
Just
please.
because BBI is here.
Yeah.
Is this handshake real? Is it?
This handshake is going to last until 2022. And remember that for the first time, and I agree with my co-panelist Nordin, and probably just to use different words, the handshakes that we have had in this country have been about dealership and not leadership, because there have been handshakes that are coined to be able to meet expectations of a few individuals, and a few of these, most of these expectations are very selfish. Because if you look at, for instance, a very common indicator from a governance perspective of how you would be able to gauge whether the handshake is working or not is the economy, living standards of the people. The beauty of what we have right now is that we have what is called the Big Four agenda, for which we expect that, as Nordin and all of us, as Nordin is saying and all of us know, the handshake was supposed to give us an environment for which business would be easy to do. The mandamanos would then be called off. People would travel, as Osido, all the way from Rieda, would easily go into Kiambu, some village in Nduberi. And, that's happening. And people would easily, socially, as we expect that we are supposed to be as Kenyans, and that all these things would then be able to ensure that markets are opening for counties and mamambogas are selling their mbogas and people are feeling okay. Despite COVID-19 context, that is not what Kenyans are feeling. Instead, we are seeing SGRs coming up. We are seeing people buying...
A very high cost.
Exactly. People buying houses every day, and some are, being brought down. And if you ask, by the way, this thing used to belong to so-and-so, who now owns it? It is a family that we've been describing. And I agree with Mheshimiwa Senator that this issue about hustlers and all that, the youth need to take advantage. If it is true, I will confirm that it is the youth who coined the hustler issue. Let us be able to profile our own hustlers and stop the politicians from taking advantage. So the handshake needs to be taken away from the political class. And then we use it to be able to use, to take it to the people. Let the people use it to be able to meet their expectations, which are economic power, ease of doing business, employment for the youth, service delivery to counties. It is absurd. And I think it's immoral for counties to be blaming national government for people that they can easily sit with for lack of ensuring that resources are taken to the counties to deliver water to the people. COVID-19 is happening. We are told you only need soap and water, but handshake is not ensuring that people have water in the village.
Hold still with that thought. Let me go to Senator Kasanga. Senator, the BBI was supposed to bring Kenyans together, not leaders. But we have seen it, and we are Kenyans, we've all seen it. Is this BBI going to last that long, knowing right now the ODM party, which in essence is in Jubilee, is pushing one of the Jubilee candidates, who is the deputy president, to say no? They're pushing him to the wall to say no. So what happens to the BBI? Is it bringing people together? Is it going to bring people together at the end of the day?
Fred, the BBI, when we look at the genesis of the BBI, it all started from a good place. The handshake that brought BBI started from a good place at a time when the country really needed it. To stabilize the country, get the economy going, and get Kenyans, in a place where they can come together and we can break these issues that have, ailed us over and over the electoral cycle. It started from a good place. Now, I don't know, this conversation, we have to be very careful. As much as now it is a political process, it did start from the people. We saw the committee going around and, collecting views from Kenyans and had the first draft. And after the first draft, there was still another round of public participation where people went to the secretariat and still panel beat the document into place, and still a lot of conversations still happen. When the bill was first published, remember at Bomas, and the DP did bring up a lot of issues which I believe have been canvassed in the second draft of the bill. And the truth be told, the DP does not really oppose the BBI. I think for him, it's a question of timing. And the timing is something you can completely understand at a time when the country is so low economically. And there's no money to conduct a referendum as much as they're saying they can muscle up some money. With we have referendum now, so that at least it's the way to understand why when for that. And also, the truth be said, there are good things about this BBI, and there are those which we still wish it could still be, further amended or maybe put on hold until much later. But you can understand, that sort of dynamic, why the two people are seeing it from a different point of view. But now for me, I'll tell you this, the issue about the people saying no to BBI, because technically, there is no one is saying it's bad. It's about now the logistics around it. But I believe it is because of, the vipengeles that talk about the expansion of the executive and the perception that already they have been crafted for certain individuals. And that lack of trust amongst the political class at that level is what is causing this back and forth. There's a feeling that, these seats have been crafted for certain people and to lock out certain other people. And that is what is bringing this back and forth. And let's not forget the way our politics works in this country. And we need to be really alive to that fact that a lot of the things that are happening are purely political, and our political leaders don't trust each other, because in the end it's about control of money and resources at the national level. It boils down to that, and that's where the power is. Right. This lack of trust is what is causing the different conversations to happen around BBI. And in my opinion, again, a very unfortunate situation where we might find ourselves in one worst case scenario, the baby and the bath water being thrown away, and some of the gains we would have gotten from this BBI referendum will be lost, and it will be another long time before we can get back to that same sort of conversation. So again, it's politics. Unfortunately, it is real politics. And Kenyans have really been whipped to not like the document, and I can understand, because again, the timing of it is such that COVID came. If at least you are not dealing with COVID today, then the dynamic may be a little bit different. But the fact that we are so down right now as a citizenry because of COVID and the lack of funds is, of course, muddling the whole thing. But I personally fear that there are some good things about the BPI that may be lost if it does not gain the support that it needs. And truly, that is my personal position.
Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you for your contribution. Now, Deputy President has said time and time again, we should postpone the referendum that is supposed to happen next year to 2022 and merge it with the general elections. Do you think this is possible?
From a very conventional democratic process, it is possible. It is, in fact, there are certain jurisdictions where this kind of thing has been done, and we can we can mention them. But
I knew there was a but. Saw it coming.
Okay, let me say, however, two things. One,
yes,
we have not invested in the space of the citizens in this process. The citizens are still aloof. They are not aware in terms of what is this exactly. Yes, from a very a position of creating calm and ensuring that things that we are living our normal lives and just going on with our businesses, that has been achieved. But this conversation has not been given to the people. It is the politicians who are driving it. And in their driving it, I get very disturbed when, even as I read the document, as the few privileged people who have had the opportunity to access this document, because people have not had the access to this document. That needs to be done by the promoters. As I read this document, I get perplexed when I hear people saying things which are not even
in the document.
So the first thing that we need to do, if we are interested in mixing or a hybrid of elections and the referendum, is to be able to help the citizens to understand it through a proper civic education process. Number two, remember, there are things...
Is it possible?
That is not going to happen.
It
It is not going to happen. We do not have a framework for civic education. We don't have a curriculum. We have
we should just do away with
There's
BBI.
no passion. There's no passion to be able to ensure that citizens understand it, because when citizens understand it, they will organize themselves around certain specific issues, for which there are about 7 of them, for which Mheshimiwa is also saying there are the highs of BBI, which is really what is exciting to the common citizen, which is about, for instance, what development fund. Break it down to the people to understand that 500 million shillings in a small ward of 500,000 people, well, there's no ward with that number, a small ward of 40,000 people will be able to achieve XYZ for you specifically, and that you'll be able to ensure that public participation is taking place. So you sit, you have your own priorities, and then you have your own plans and pass them to the county assembly, and then a budget is also put in place, and you take your space to be able to decide how that money is being used. However, the conversation has been tilted to the offices. So who wants to be president, deputy president, prime minister, and that is where the catch is, because for us to ensure that we have those positions for 2022, we must rush the BBI now, and that is what is happening.
The deputy president has said we need to amend it even further.
Consensus.
We need a consensus. We need to agree. But over and over again, he's been told it's impossible. Is it possible?
He was
From
told
where
that,
you sit?
He was told that the first time, so...
Then they met. They met and had tea.
For you to be a resilient leader, you have to keep asking and keep asking. If you get a no the first time, it's not a permanent no. You just keep asking. But I saw a joke on social media. Someone said, like, so did you pass your exams or do you need a consensus? Did you pass or do you fail? Or do you need a consensus? I think what the deputy president actually, his position has been, it's actually quite unfair to expect him to take any position. That's what I believe. And I think he's been very careful about how he's gone about it from the very beginning. We had the president at Boma say that, this guy was a part of it. He even gave 3 guys to the task force. So he knew what was happening. But when I analyze the things that have been happening in that arena, I feel as though he was coerced into it. And I think at that moment, it was more, like he said, when we were told we were going to unite the country, we were told that we were going to have a task force of elderly people. And that's why, by the way, that 14-member task force was old people.
Bishops.
It was old people. In fact, I did an article about it. The average age of all those people was 50. Yeah. So
the youth
were not represented. And I know this because I actually pushed to have youth representation before they started now having the smaller kamkunjis. But when the deputy president was told this thing, he was told we need to unite the country. We can't leave this country like this. But so of course, even me, if you coin it like that, I'm like, yes, everybody's. It's about peace and unity. So let's go ahead and do this. You want 3 people, here are the 3 people that I'm giving you. So when it now morphed into a constitutional amendment, and not just a constitutional amendment, but one that is actually invoking that we expand the executive. Definitely, for a presidential candidate in the next election, the interests change. Because you suddenly want to understand, okay, wait, what's going on? It's not about peace and unity. It's about who's coming in 2022 and things like that. So, and I think that's the moment where there was around in those political gatherings and talking about, this is not a time for this kind of initiative, blah, blah, because it was, I almost see it like shock and, and betrayal. And so because people have betrayed me, I'm going to actually, push back. So at the end of the day, when you look at the genesis of the Building Bridges initiative, it started because of a handshake. Now, I keep asking people, it was 2 people who went and shook hands. We don't know the capacity at which they went to shake these hands. Because remember, our president, His Excellency Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, is also a father. He is also the party leader of Jubilee.
He lives in Kenya.
He lives in Kenya, so he's also a citizen, just like any other person. He's a common mwananchi. He's also the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. And let us not forget, he's a businessman. So maybe we don't know which hat he was wearing. We don't know which battle that he had with Raila Odinga, because Raila Odinga also is a former prime minister. head of AU representation, and you know, he is also a businessman. So, you know, me and you could be business people. We could also be spouses, but we are fighting on business matters.
Hold still.
So when we are shaking the hands,
Yeah.
please, the clarification should have been for you now to bring us common citizens into this your story.
Yeah.
We want to know first, mulikuwa mnapigana maneno ya Brookside na nini, ama ilikuwa maneno ya citizenship na nini, so that now when we are saying we are uniting, we know, okay, we are uniting on the basis of business or the basis of this country.
Can we bring on Senator Kasanga into this conversation? And Senator, let me ask you this question. Wiper has been seen time and time again going towards the Jubilee Party, and especially the president himself. And we've seen several national events, Wiper being called, and you want to merge. Are we going to see a political formation from Wiper, like what we saw with NASA? Are we going to see your party getting into a political formation with other parties? Is that what we're going to see in 2021?
Well, Fred, you know, 2021 is still far away. Let me just say that in politics, that is still far away. What Wiper did was get into not a coalition, but you know, we just went into an agreement, yes, of working together. What we want is to help the president finish his term and, you know, finish his legacy, and hopefully craft the way forward from there as part of finishing his legacy neatly and properly. That is what Wiper was doing. As to go into coalitions, that is to be determined, you know, further and closer to the elections of 2022. But for now, we are with the president to help him finish his legacy and his mandate. So we are part of the BBI process. We support the BBI. Yes, even though we have, of course, independently, when I speak on it, I do give my reservations in certain areas. But largely, you know, we are in agreement that it is a good document, and we want it before the election, because we need to make sure the gains of the proposed constitutional amendments are gained even at the point of election in 2022. So that is really the essence of Wiper Party.
So there will not be political formation. Is that what you're telling us? We are not going to see Wiper saying. I think a week ago, 3 weeks ago, I saw Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka, Moses Wetangula, Senator for Bungoma, I saw Musalia Mudavadi, leader of ANC, finally coming together since 2017. Is that a political formation we are seeing? Isn't it?
No, it's conversations that are on. You would have seen the communication if that is the case. Don't forget that these are the leaders of all our political parties.
I
have to be careful about this. I can't just say something that is not been communicated to us as well. And as NEC, we've not sat down to ratify and say that this is indeed a political formation. No. What you're seeing is a series of conversations. Of course, politicians have to all the time strategize, keep talking, align themselves. You know, as BBI maybe comes into fruition, people have to align themselves, and that's what politicians do. So what you're seeing are a series of conversations that are happening as people try and figure out, okay, where do I need to be, or where
Sylvia, are you telling me Wiper leader is not going for the presidency?
I'm sorry.
The presidency. That one we've already declared. We ratified it at NEC, and we've said it publicly that yes, our party leader is going to be on the ballot. That was already said a long time ago. That is not in secret, that is in the public view.
Director Lynette, how many minutes do we have before we go on a break? Knows we can go to the next?
Yes.
I want to give my parting shot because I have to go.
You have to go. All right, so that you can be left to the studio. Okay, give us your parting shot, Sylvia. Yes. I know it's been a busy day.
Yes, it's a busy day. I still have 2 or 3 groups that I have to speak to today, so I have to go.
All right.
But I want to thank you so much, Fred, for the opportunity to share on this platform. And it's severally you've called me here and given me this opportunity to share with Kenyans what I've been doing in Parliament. And, you know, these conversations are important. And I just want to say, as I wish Kenyans a very blessed season of Christmas and New Year, a time of reflection as well. This is a time of reflection from the learnings we've had from this difficult year. It's been a difficult year for a lot of us Kenyans. And for those who have lost loved ones, I send my condolences to them, and I pray that they will find comfort and peace. And then, we look towards rebuilding our economy the coming new year. And also, let's not forget a lot of learnings from COVID. You know, the things about washing hands are beautiful things that we learned. And we saw the effect of washing hands because a lot of our children stopped getting sick and a lot of people didn't need to go to hospital as much. So I'm praying that some of these cultures that we have learned, that we can hang on to them, you know, for posterity, even after COVID. And, you know, let us learn to love one another as Kenyans. And for the youth who are there in studio, remember, you're only youth for a short period. Even me, I was just a youth.
Now you're old.
I'm no longer a youth. So the period of being a youth is so short. So we cannot just keep hanging in there and saying youth, youth, youth. We have to see action, and we have to see those who are youth right now. Create a framework so that other youth
Hold still. Sylvia, because I know you're about to go and we're about to go on a break. Let me ask you this final question before you leave. Now, you've been the chair of COVID-19, the COVID-19. You've seen. Do you think your committee in the Senate has been able to handle the COVID-19 situation in the country in the way it's supposed to be handled?
Actually, I will say yes. We had quite a bit of wins. If I was to share with you the reports, we tabled a total of 9 reports at the time when our committee was alive. It was only alive for 6 months. That was the mandate we were given. And the good thing is we started our interactions early. You remember, it was late March. So from April, we started sitting and interacting with citizens, stakeholders, as well as the national response team. So we were able to get quite a number of wins from the early on. In fact, some of the things that you saw happening from an early stage of COVID during the lockdowns were because our committee really pushed. From the time you saw judiciary go virtual, that was our push. From the time you saw NTSA go digital to start issuing licenses for vehicles so that trucks could deliver food and, you know, those things, those were some of the things that we pushed for as a committee.
But money has been stolen. Money has been stolen. Money has been stolen, and you're aware of that.
We are the ones who brought up that issue. Actually, Fred, if
you haven't seen anyone being prosecuted, Sylvia.
But let me finish, Fred. It was our committee that first raised the issue of pricing at KEMSA. It was our committee. And it is our committee, jointly with the health committee, that instituted the investigations at KEMSA. So our committee wound up its work in October, and left the health committee prosecuting that matter. And I'll tell you, when I said earlier on, there were frustrations and there were laws. Those are some of the frustrations that I have to tell you we encountered as a committee.
Okay.
Because answers come so slowly. Even right now, the health committee will tell you how frustrating it is.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Senator, thank you. Now, what stood out most for you this year, and what do you expect in the coming year, 2021? Send in your feedback to our SMS line 111 at Switch TV Kenya, at Fred Mutiriri, and at Lincoln Ombogo. The conversation continues after this short commercial break. This is 2020 in review. What stood out most for you this year, and what do you expect next year? SMSs on 111 tweet at Switch TV Kenya, at Lincoln Ombogo, and at Fred Mutiriri. The last chapter of 2020. COVID-19, Fred.
Kevin, no. Sometimes I wonder about this country that we live in. It took almost 2 months for COVID-19 to hit our country. I remember I started tracing it, COVID-19, in December of last year. I remember very well. And I used to update it on my Facebook. And this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. Do you think we were caught, like most times, pants down?
Precisely so. In fact, in my view, it basically presented our interaction with the global community. We have high commissioners, we have ambassadors, people who should be speaking
to the country.
Yeah, to the country. And I remember that at that particular point in time, the very initial stages when we saw Mheshimiwa, is it Sarah?
Yes, Sarah Serem.
Chinese, Kenya's
ambassador to China.
To China, really. And why, in my view, she was coming to the front is because young people in China, Kenyans, Kenyan youth who are students in China were saying, we are dying. Can we be rescued? Can somebody come and,
Said we cannot send a plane there.
And you see how even our country really reacted in this particular kind of incident. And so that really, in my view, presents the opportunity for us to be able to have a very close interaction with the global community. And remember that now Kenya is a member of UNSC, the United Nations Security Council. And this is a global body that then is supposed to advise not just on peace and security issues, but that security is very critical, therefore. So begin having a conversations around global human security and then the security of Kenyans. So closer home, it then brought to the fore issues around our emergency preparedness, which in fact have been tested very many times, including when fires, when fires hit certain areas of our country, when we have floods around, when we have locusts, eating food, which should be
Minded of me
kept.
about locusts. My goodness, what a year this has been.
There are lots of things that I think COVID-19 has given us to be able to reflect and ponder about, reflect over and ponder about as a people. But I think the third level of it is national and county governments, to the extent that even as we are speaking now, doctors are actually, the third day of notice is about to expire for them to join the nurses to be able to go into a strike. And so the question is, how turgid is our health infrastructure to be able to respond to such kind of pandemics like COVID-19? And so quite sadly so, we've also seen losses. Our frontline healthcare workers, some of them have lost their lives. May God give strength to their family members and may their souls rest in peace. We have Kenyans who've also passed on out of this particular crisis. A governor now, just a few days or weeks ago, now is gone out of COVID-19. The question is, what does this present to us? And so I think moving forward is to have a conversation around how we prepare for emergencies, how we interact with the global community, and then how we respond. Because communication initially was very well. We saw, different stakeholders coming to be able to report. We were being given numbers for which, as Kevin, I stopped watching at some point.
Yeah. Most Kenyans did.
And then suddenly we have schools, in a few days' time we'll be going back to school, and no one is really sharing how this is going to happen. I am part of a WhatsApp group of teachers in my primary school, and now we are being asked to contribute as a former, alumni to be able to buy soap, buy water, please come and clean the school. These things should not be happening for a country like Kenya in 2020.
Did we underestimate its impact, Gloria?
Definitely, we underestimated the impact of this pandemic, and also there was very little information. So in all fairness, even as we speak of how we should have responded, I mean, from our representative, and that is the Ambassador Sarah Serem in China, you could tell that there was not much information that was available about what was happening. It's almost as if also China kept that, wrapped down.
Themselves.
Yeah. So having said that, I think one of the things that I have repeatedly said about this pandemic is that Kenya doesn't have a resiliency plan. I come from a background of critical facilities. I actually managed 10,000 square meters of a data center for Facebook in Denmark. And the one thing that was always top on our list is resiliency planning. How do you bounce back after a disaster? And at that time, we were looking already at disasters such as this, a pandemic, viral, because nowadays you're not just thinking you'll be attacked by a gunman or by a bomb or by a drone that is coming to drop something. You have to really think at where we are at as the world, the digital. We're actually also dealing with things like digital attacks. So resiliency planning is a thing that I believe in Africa we have not embraced. Not only in terms of...
Why is this the case? Is it poor planning
no.
Is it that we do not
Do you know
want?
what I think it is? I think it's a culture. This is the thing. With an African, and this is why we get so bored in Europe, because in Europe they foresee everything and then and they put all these precautions and measures, and so everything is very predictable. But our culture as Africans is we are responsive. We have a responsive culture. It's like stima zitaenda, wacha zikienda ndio tutajua kenye tutafanya. And then stima ziende, guy, wapi candles and what's not, you understand? But in other cultures, they actually anticipate it. They are very proactive about it, and they don't like surprises. But Africans, we love surprises. We live by surprises. So, I mean, going back to how I think our government has dealt with COVID-19, I think the main issue first is we don't really have a resiliency plan for this country. What we have is emergency responses. An emergency response is just an element of resiliency planning. It's like if there's a fire, we will send the fire trucks. But then after the
Without
fire
water.
trucks get there, they don't even think, okay,
After
how do they come back from there? By the way, traffic is imefungwa huku na huku. You know, there's no real end-to-end process or plan of it. Ama hakuna maji like we always hear. So I think, if you ask me, one of the things that we really need to look into, I don't know which ministry this should fall under.
Security, internal security.
Probably internal security, you're right, yeah. I think we should really look into resiliency planning for this country and really, like I said, like Facebook does it, and like other corporate organizations, think through every other disaster, attack, terror that can come, and have like a team of technocrats who say, okay, now me, I'm dealing with chemical weapons. What if our water is actually poisoned? What do we do? Because, you know,
It can happen.
it can happen.
True.
Me, I'm dealing, you know, I'm an expert in food science and blah, blah, blah. We are going to talk about all the imports that we are having of certain things that are being consumed, you know, across the country. So we need to seriously look into our resiliency planning, because if we had a plan, we would not be stuck on how do we go back to school. Have you noticed we don't know how to go back to school? It's like
We haven't planned for it.
failure
Like
to
he's
take
saying.
off, yeah.
Like he's saying, we haven't planned
we
for
knew
it.
we could shut down. We are shutting down the schools. That's done. We are home. But nobody really thought, okay, now
What-
there's so much that has happened in terms of even the students have realized, I don't need to go to school to make money.
Hold still,
You
hold
know.
still. Let me go to Nordin and ask you this question, Nordin. You have seen, not once, not twice, nurses striking the whole year. They've been complaining about simple things like PPEs. Is this exposing the Ministry of Health inability to be able to cater for our health system? The other day, I heard the CS saying that the nurses should take care to not find themselves jobless next year. Are we having a Ministry of Health that is not well coordinated? Is that what is being exposed?
I believe what we have right now is a basics. In that, nobody wants to take the blame for what is happening. Now, in the Ministry of Health, as they usually call these days, the mafia house. We saw the other day what you call him, the CS for Health.
Are you on mute, my friend? Can you hear me? I think
Yes, I can.
Go ahead.
I'm saying the challenge we have is, like I earlier said when we started, is a lack of proper leadership. Why do I say this? Because the other day we saw the Minister for Health saying the doctors, if they dare strike, the people will be fired. That does not solve the crisis that we have, or that it doesn't solve the issues that they have. What we're supposed to do is take care of our doctors. So when you say that the first line of defense, if the first line of defense in any war is taken out, then you lose the war. Because the second line is usually the one in the middle. So if your first line of defense is gone, which are the doctors, who we actually spent 15 years to make one a specialist. So if the number of doctors we've lost, how many years are we going to work and get another specialist of the same caliber? So I believe the challenge starts straight from the Ministry of Health. We need to put that mafia house in order. That's all we need to do.
Are you
Because
calling
we
it
had
mafia
so many
house?
scandals.
Nurdin, are you calling it mafia house?
Yes, it is.
Oh, goodness. Why would you call it?
Why?
Nurdin, why would you call it a mafia house? It's being led by a sober CS.
Than Churchill.
Nurdin can't believe I'm saying he's a sober. Unfortunately, I can't hear you, brother.
Thank you, Nudin. Now, we were dealing with a pandemic, and now we are remembering all fallen soldiers. It's unfortunate that we lost so many people to COVID-19. We have continued to lose so many people to COVID-19, but we cannot ignore the fact that when the measures were introduced, specifically the curfew, police brutality came to play and we lost 7 people. And this seems not to be addressed. Police brutality, extrajudicial killings.
Tell us
And it
about...
happened, and especially it happened when the time in the US, the same was happening.
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter. Do they matter here in this country?
You know, I was almost tempted to say all lives matter, but I know that is a really bad analogy. I think the problem that we are facing, we have institutional breakdowns. It's not only police, you know. The service providers, when you look at certain institutions, certain ministries, immigration, for instance, we're talking about police, you go to a level 4, level 5 hospitals, and we saw the lady who was giving birth outside the
hospital.
The hospital. So, and then you ask yourself, why does it feel like we are a failed state, you know? And then that now brings you back to the issue of leadership, which I think that's what Nordin was addressing. It brings you back to the issue of leadership, because in order for us to influence culture, to influence a change of mindset, it has to start at the top. That's unfortunately, that's what it is. It has to start at the top. And when you look at all the scandals, and I believe this is why my co-panelist is actually calling it Mafia House. When you look at the scandals that have hit, our healthcare service providers, our healthcare institutions, basically Ministry of Health. When you look at the mess, managed equipment services, which actually the Senate came out with a full detailed report and, you know, tabled it at the Senate. And it was very clear the people that who should have been held accountable just from that report. There were lists of the service providers and how those service providers were actually shortlisted, whether through the Public Procurement Act of 2015 or otherwise. We saw how certain people were influenced. It is all there in the report. And then nothing has happened. You understand? Nothing has happened because no one is making anything happen. When I say no one, I mean our leaders, because the only person that has the full autonomy to direct this country against corruption and who has all the powers that have been given to that office is the president. You understand?
But that's not happening.
It's not happening because we cannot keep blaming the judiciary. We had Maraga complaining that they don't have budgets, that the budgets that they have been allocated in terms of now being able to give those services that will ensure that we have convictions, being able to investigate and take all those. You understand? They literally say they don't have budgets.
Now that you're talking about Maraga, you've just reminded me about something. Maraga has retired. Kevin.
Sure.
We have seen judiciary over time, and especially this year. I have never seen it in my life. A CJ standing before cameras and saying, you know what, I have tried reaching the president. I can't get him.
There is a background to that issue. And
we shall revisit.
Exactly.
Yes.
People are revisiting and they are going back to
Is it fair? Is it right?
If you look at it from a governance perspective, it is not right. It is immoral. It is unexpected. It should not happen. Why? Because the 3 arms of government, executive, judiciary, legislature, are interdependent, but independent as well. So you expect that executive will perform its functions in its own way, have your own ways of engaging, guided by the Constitution and other supporting legislations. And so in the same manner, you also expect that the judiciary is supposed to exercise its responsibilities and functions in a similar manner. However, as Gloria rightfully said, politics has taken almost full spectrum, center stage of everything that happens in this country, including the kind of food that you eat. Because tomorrow somebody will say, all the unga in our supermarkets has this thing called what?
Aflatoxin.
And then they will just, ban them, and nobody goes to begin to check and test. We have a whole institution just across by called KEBS that will not even be given the opportunity. Tomorrow they can choose to say, lock the roads. And we are all struggling, to squeeze, and nobody is asking.
Kevin, are you telling us from a governance perspective that we are headed where we know Rwanda is there, we are headed where Tanzania is there, we are headed where Uganda is there? Are we headed there as a country?
We will only get there when Kenyans take over this country. As it is right now, we have all these people called cartels, the people that we had Nordin calling Mafia House and all that. And they're the ones, even if you listen to the story we had initially, which is the Sonko story, are the ones who will determine who gets impeached and who does not get impeached.
But maybe if I can take you back.
So in a similar manner, And remember that this CJ took over from a CJ who left office before the term
got
of his
tired.
office, you know.
He got
There are
tired.
details that we need to deal with as a country. But we cannot leave this and the future of this country to the hands of a few people who will also determine who the successor of Maraga is.
Before we bring you on board, I know Nudin is a lawyer. Nudin, your sector has been attacked this year by what they have been saying, the presidency. Nudin, what do you make of the fight between the judiciary and the executive?
It's a fight for control. A fight where one arm of government wants to control the other so as to get its way with it, which I will never support. And one way they want to control the judiciary is via the ombudsman, as in the BBI. There is no way you will tell me you will have an ombudsman who will report to the president. That is like saying you and I are in class and there's a prefect who doesn't like you, will always jot down your name and send it to the teacher anytime he or she doesn't like you. So what we are saying is we want the independence of the judiciary.
For
the judiciary to be independent, one of the ways you have to give independence is by letting it work. When they talk about solving corruption cases in less than 2 years in the BBI, you cannot solve a corruption case by underfunding the judiciary. Have you talked about funding the judiciary better? So we need to be serious and holistic. The executive needs to work as an executive and live by the words of separation of powers. Let the judiciary be the judiciary. To some extent, I blame Maraga because there's a time he was acting with a dealings with the president. He even went with him to Kisi. And that was more or less like showing, I am under you. We need the judiciary to be strong. We need for the judiciary to be respected. And that is the only way we can go forward. Because if the judiciary is in bed with the executive, we will never find justice, because when there are cases against the government, who will rule against the government? No one. So we need a judiciary that is firm, strong, and most importantly, that fears the man above.
There's something you wanted to say
about
the ombudsman.
I wanted to talk about the fact that the separation of powers with these three arms of government has to be there. But unfortunately, the one thing that we are always overlooking is that the judiciary actually gets its budget approved by the executive. So at the end of the day, you can be there independent and autonomous trying to do whatever you're doing, but I'm not going to give you money, which is actually where most of the problems were. There was issues on budgeting, and actually you need resources to be able to push certain
and that's
certain
say time and time again, there's no money.
But I've also heard Nodin talking about Maraga, we should blame him in terms of not showing that independence from the executive. I don't think that is the case. By the way, if there's a CJ who has literally held that office to the highest level of integrity and independence, it is Maraga. He is the person that actually nullified that election. He is the person that basically said, if you guys are not going to respond to all these letters which I'm writing to try and get audience with the president, then I'll hold my press conference and just tell everybody what is going on. You understand? He is the only person that also said, I'm not going to work on Saturday because it's the Sabbath. Yeah, it's the Sabbath. And I believe in God, and I believe in this God, and this are my belief. You understand? So, I mean, in terms of integrity, in terms of really being an independent office and that personality, you have to give it to Maraga. You have to, and also, he didn't quit. He didn't quit. He didn't throw his hands up and say that it's not working. Yeah. He braved it through. Wakamwambia watampatia Mercedes, watanipatia what he is looking for. And at the end of the day, he said, I will hold firm. I will come to the end. And at the end of it, when he was addressing his peers and the guys who went for when he gave his speech when he was leaving, he said, he's done his part. And he said that he gave advice to the person who's coming in the office. And already you can see we already have a problem, because even our deputy CJ already has cases and issues, and is unable to just take over that office independently without being seen as biased. So I always say this to Kenyans. You never miss the water till the well runs dry. You know? This guy Maraga was a noisemaker, he was whining.
We never thought you were going to miss Kibaki.
You know, look, we are. And actually, may I dare say this? May I dare say this on national TV? We never thought we were going to miss Moi.
Oh,
until when it happened.
We are about to finish here.
Kevin, who will be the next CJ?
Difficult to tell from where I am seated.
Yeah.
But remember, even as we are looking for the CJ, the president does not make his decisions on judiciary alone. He has a senior legal advisor who is called the Attorney General. The one we have right now also took over from an AG who resigned and left office. There must be something going on between the executive and the judiciary. It is the executive that will determine who will take over from the CJ.
Nurdin, you've had, whom do you think would be the next CJ? We've seen Deputy CJ Mwilu. She has enough case, a baggage that is following her. Whom do you think from your quarters as lawyers who is taking over the mantle?
To avoid getting victimized when I appear before the Supreme Court, I'm not saying it. But what I will say, is that we need someone who is firm. You know, my brother just
who
said
is that person? Who is that person, Nurdin? Who?
No. Listen. The president, my friend here just said the executive will have a way. That is not what we want. They should never have a way because they will put a puppet. And we will never allow a puppet to be the CJ. Because when a puppet is the CJ, this country will go into total chaos. What we want, when I said about Maraga woke up too late. He woke up way too late because in the beginning, he was in a dalliance with the president. You see, it's like a marriage. When you get married and the first years of marriage and you can't leave your house without asking for permission, it will be like that until you die. So when you get into a marriage, for example, you show that you also have an authority. So what am I saying? What we want to see is one, a person with integrity.
Yes.
A person that is firm to make, you see, decisions that are sometimes not easy on the ears, you know. Nullification itself is not the only way to become a CJ.
Yeah.
We want someone who can tell the government, you have your way, but there is the law.
All right.
That will compel the government to follow court orders.
Thank you so very much, Nurdin. That was Nurdin Hagai, who is a lawyer and a political analyst. Here in the studio, definitely, we had Kevin Osindo, who is a governance expert. We had Gloria Oroba, beautiful name. Yeah, youth policy analyst. Thank you so very much. We had Sylvia Kasanga, who is a nominated Wiper senator. We wanted to have Gladys Sholei. Actually, we heard her when we were beginning, and all of a sudden, mitandao kaput. So thank you so very much for watching 2020, the year in review, and I'll leave you with this quote. Thank you, Dan, for this quote. He told me to say to you, no matter how an individual views Satan, whether they believe that he is a real character or that he's just a product of literary scholars and imagination, no one can deny that each one of us has an aspect of the devil within us. I don't know if I have devil, but by studying the character and nature of Satan, we learn about ourselves, and the more we know about ourselves, the better we can fight our own personal metamorpho. That word. Or otherwise, order to create a better tomorrow. By Nwocha Ogenchukwu. Nigerians! Oh! Do you have a quote, brother?
I wish we had more time, but I have a quote for you. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how strong the man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust, sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. This is by former US President Theodore Roosevelt. The conversation continues next year. And
I'll remind you this before we leave. Views expressed here, you've heard enough, are individual views and not that of Switch TV. Many thanks for making time for us. I appreciate you. We are going to see each other in a few days' time when we return with a tipping point from myself, Frederick Mutiriri. Do have yourself a good night.